Welcome to Feisty Chess. I'm playing white here against Pre4 on Lichess. We've got a French defense. I do enjoy a good game of the French defense classical variation. I'm going to try a gambit here. I don't think I've tried this gambit on the channel before. It's called the Alekhine-Chatard Gambit, and we're giving up our h-pawn if black should take it here with bishop takes g5 and then recapturing with the queen. Okay, he's taking once. Will he take twice? He does. Okay. Thing is, I don't know this gambit all that well. I think I'm supposed to go knight to h3 instead of knight to f3 here. Let's do that. Queen probably go back to e7. Although h4 and h6 look like strange possibilities. Okay. Now, the idea. Queen e7. All right, this is where my theoretical knowledge runs out, but let's look at our options. Bishop d3 comes to mind, but then what to do after c5. Queen g4. Queen g4 looks like a more forcing idea. That's where the queen wants to go. This is all about a kingside attack. Probably will dissuade black from castling at all, which might be worth the pawn, hopefully, in this position. For the pawn, we have the h-file. We have our big French center here. Can I just meet this with f4? Or do I want to take here? If black gets f5 in, that shuts things down. I want things to stay open, don't I? I can't regain the pawn on e5. If I check, it's just g6. Okay, I'm going to play knight f4. This is a tricky move. I think I should have played this last move, maybe, just to get this knight further in the game. And this might be the main idea with the main idea with knight h3. So likely, well, let's look at the book when I'm done, but likely the better move is knight to f4 immediately. So okay, I think I'm good here. If f5. f5 is kind of the critical try for black because that shuts things down and makes it a lot harder for white to drum up an attack. But if I had taken, his knight's going to definitely recapture, protecting this pawn another time on e6 by unleashing the bishop on the same diagonal as my queen, and of course hitting my queen with the knight itself, and I'm losing time in the opening then. So knight f4. I might have mixed up the move order here. The idea is, the way I played this, is if f5, I have a check. If he blocks with the queen, I can simply take on e6, and I've got my pawn back, and I'm looking much better because my queen is protected by my rook. And this queen is pinned by my queen on this diagonal. If instead f5, queen h5, g6 isn't really possible because knight takes here. Okay. All right, I like the look of knight takes e6 here. I might be sacking a piece, but I can't play d takes e because then once again he's got this thing protected twice, and his knight is on e5 hitting my queen. And if I go queen h5 check, let's look at this line. Takes, takes, attacking my queen, queen h5 check, knight f7. He can't play knight g6, but knight f7 gets him out of trouble. And now he's got e6 well defended. And he probably doesn't want to castle. He certainly can't castle. Oh. No, knight f7 critically also protects this rook. So then knight g6 is not possible because he can just take. Take, knight takes, and here, and his king will escape to d7. So the alternative is knight takes pawn on e6 immediately. Yeah, I like that. Things are heating up in the center. I've got my knight on this pawn now. I'm looking critically, I'm looking at this check. So yeah, this looks quite nice. So I've played this gambit many a time, but so often it just gets declined if we go back. A lot of times black will just play h6 here, or f6 even, I think is possible. Or just castle. And actually, you can also just, after all this, black can just castle here. It's kind of crazy, but he has his defensive resources in the position. But I think most players, after accepting this, will not castle. I did see a game with Wesley So once, where he won as black by just castling in this position. And with that open h-file and that rook on the h-file, this knight and queen coming in, and not a lot of defenders able to get to the king over here. This knight can't come to f6, for instance. It can come to f8 if the rook can clear out after castling. Other ideas might look like knight to f8 to g6 and then castling. I don't know, but let's get back to the position at hand. Okay, he's played knight f6. My idea here was knight takes g7 at least. Knight. Well, that also defends d5, it seems. Queen takes g7 is also possible because the rook is hanging in the corner. And I'm getting my pawn back in either of those lines, so let's look at them. Let's look at queen takes first. Well, I'm not getting my pawn back because in the end my d4 pawn is hanging. I think queen takes, probably queen takes is the most, or rook g8. Rook g8 is reasonable. Queen takes queen. Oh, if he allows that, then I've got knight here. So queen takes, probably queen takes is necessary, because actually after queen takes, I'm threatening knight takes here. Interesting little x-ray along the rank. So queen takes, knight takes with check, probably king f7. And then I can take on e5, hitting his knight. That looks okay. Let's look at knight takes first, however. Problem is, this keeps queens on the board for an attack, but the problem is he's hitting my queen and I need to move it. I'll need to move it after king f7 to someplace that's still, or king f8. King f8, and he's got two attackers on my knight. And then I've got to go knight f5. That actually looks okay. No, No, I can't. The knight is hitting the queen. So I think I need to take with the queen here. Yeah, queen takes. Here we go. We're out of trouble on that g4 square. I think he has to take. Very tactical game here. A little low on time. But it looks like the queens are coming off. That should help. My friend Clark would say, why play a gambit if you're just going to trade queens? I really think this is the best line of play here. Because after knight takes with check, king f8, I can't save both my knight and my queen. So even gambiteers have to allow for queen trades sometimes. When it's the best move, you got to play it. Okay, we're gaining some of that time back as pre-4 thinks over things. Basically, I have two threats. The rook on h8 and also trading queens and then grabbing that rook. So yeah, that was forced as far as I can tell. My idea here to save this pawn is to actually hit this knight with pawn takes pawn. I'll be up a pawn temporarily. That's better than, say, knight. Well, hold on. Knight h5 takes, knight takes. He can either recapture this knight, and he shouldn't. Pawn takes. So pawn takes knight, and then I have knight takes pawn at the end. Ooh. And that rook is looking kind of suffocated. Okay, if I go here, that gives him the option of pushing that. But then I can come here with this big time threat. That's maybe not as good, because I want the bishop to be able to chop on a6 if the knight tries to defend that pawn. Yeah, maybe knight h4 is the way to go here. Knight h4, pawn takes, knight takes knight, pawn takes knight. Knight takes pawn, and that's a big threat he has to deal with. All right, I've convinced myself for knight h4. And I didn't look at this line, but if rook takes, if knight takes knight here, then rook takes comes in and gets my rook nice and active, hitting these pawns along the 5th rank. I figure that has to be good. Keeping more pieces on the board if I can is good. If I can keep his king stuck. His king is not safe yet. There are 5 white pieces that would like to get at him. And one rook is already in the game. And the other pieces shouldn't be too hard to bring out. If I could drag the king to f6 or even e5 in some lines, that can only be good for me, right? I don't know. It's a double-edged sword. The more pieces get traded off, the better Black's king is in the center. But he's behind in development, especially this queen side. So If he tries to shore things up with, say, c6, I'm just going to take here. And if he takes there, okay, we're going for this line. Okay, knight b5 is an option here. That kind of forces knight a6, right? And then I can grab in the center. Alternatively, I take here, and then he has to capture this knight. And then I'm taking here anyway and threatening this. So I like the idea of taking. This is my original idea. The knight's better on d5 than b5. Okay, pawns are equal. Of course, he can get in b takes, c takes b2 here, but after rook b1, yeah, I have to play this. But I'll get that pawn back with an active rook, actually. So I'm not unhappy about that. And if he plays rook e8 check here, it only makes life worse for him. I've got bishop e2, and then not only is this, well, this is a lot of threats, because this also includes a fork now when I land on c7. I have to be careful though. I can't go to the second. I can't go out in the d file because of my knight being pinned. So I got to play bishop e2 if he checks me. Maybe that is the best move for him. The thing is, it just makes this threat more powerful. Let's look at this. Rook e8 check, bishop e2. If he goes bishop g4, I just play f3, fortunately. So he can't act on that pin immediately, and I've still got this threat. He can play knight a6 to defend, but then king f1, and my threat is to take there and then land that fork. He can't defend with rook d7 because of my knight. I've also got rook h7 check when I want it in that line. So maybe he wants to keep that rook on h8. If he goes knight here immediately, however, I just chop with the bishop, which also clears f1 for my king, so I can have a nice place for him. He recaptures, and then I grab here. He's got to play a rook. He recaptures. I think I would grab the b pawn, which again threatens to trap his rook. So he has to play his bishop out somewhere, and then I grab on c7, and I'm a pawn up. And it's a healthy pawn. There's the check. Okay, we've looked at this. I have to play bishop e2. I could play knight e3, but that's admitting defeat. I want to keep this threat alive. So probably knight a6, king f1. Actually, knight a6. Rook h8 might be justified. Rook h7 check might be justified there. Yeah, knight a7. Knight a6 is the only way to defend. Question is, do I want to threaten with king f1? Can he defend anything? He can go bishop e6. So I take, he takes my knight. I don't have much, but I am cleaning up on this 6th rank. So rather than that, what about rook h7? Check. King g8 doesn't work. King g6. And then I can take with the knight here, because he's also hitting an unprotected rook. I like rook h7. If king f8, then I just skewer this rook, grab it, and then there's no more pin, and I take this a6. And then I'm landing a fork of king and rook on c7. Ooh. Comes out here for the knight. Oh. All right, I got knight f4. I got a lot of possibilities here. But knight takes. That's probably enough, right? I mean, I'll be up 2 pawns in that line. His king is misplaced, stopping his bishop. So yeah, let's go for this. I'll grab this pawn. Yeah, I'm just looking ideal here. I'd like to keep that on the 7th rank. On the open file is probably good. I don't want any rooks coming down here, threatening skewers. Maybe that's a little too cautious of me. G7 was the other option. Bishop G4 doesn't work because I've got F3. And if he tries Bishop D7 and he wants to pile up this way, Rook takes here, solves those problems for the moment. Takes away Bishop B5. Okay, I'm up 2 pawns, and look at how nice they are over here. They are ready to start marching. Let's just go with F6. F3, I mean. I'll play King F2, and I'll be looking really pretty. My bishop is ready to roll here. Maybe this rook wants to play, get a little more active. Let's dole out some checks. You can't step on the D file because there's a skewer. And this may have its own dangers. Let's check to gain a little more time. Let's get that off a light square. Okay, I wanted to play this anyway. Now if he tries to pin, let's get a pair of rooks off the board. His king is really nicely boxed in here. Okay, we'll do it that way. Now I can start marching, right? We'll just defend. Okay, let's trade that way. That's fine. Support the pawns with the king. Okay, you can have that pawn. I'll do a rook ending. Completely winning rook ending, so okay. All right, that gambit worked out well for us, for me. Let's pull up the old analysis board. I want to see the opening book mostly on this. Okay. So this is the classical French. The two main approaches are e5 immediately, which I usually play, and bishop g5 to pin. Both are about equally popular. Crazy, almost exactly. E5 is slightly more popular. And it can lead to more of a spatial battle, a positional struggle. The French is always some kind of positional struggle, but this line allows for a gambit. It also, however, allows for d takes e4, which kind of turns into a much drier position. But fortunately, black played the main alternative, bishop e7. Oh, you've also got the McCutcheon. So there's three crossroads here. This is the McCutcheon variation. This is the Rubinstein when you exchange on e4 as black. And then this is the main move, the main line, as I understand it, although it's less popular than the Rubinstein here. Okay, now e5 is almost always played. So now knight f7, knight d7. And the main line is takes. So what I don't like about that is you've traded off your bad, I guess it's good for white in the sense that he's traded off his bad bishop for black's good bishop. But it helps black untangle when you exchange pieces. So instead, let's just give the piece up and sack a pawn and get this running. So yeah, once you take with the bishop, you might as well take with the queen because this pawn can be a dangerous attacker. You can just plow in and give it up anyway with like g6. So you might as well grab the extra pawn if you're black. And now knight h3 is the move. Knight f3 doesn't do so well, as intuitive as that is. Queen d3 is another try, but knight h3 is the main move. Oh, you can also go after this. But then after knight a6, both knights look a little silly. Okay, knight h3. Queen h6. Queen h4 has been tried. I'm curious here. I want to get to know this opening a little bit. I love to learn gambits. So g3 just chases the queen away anyway and gives our bishop another option. Okay. I can see why that's not desirable. How about queen h6? The idea is to pin this knight. g3 anyway, and we're just going to plan on bishop sitting here, and then the knight's no longer pinned. And that queen's going to want to get off the file. So queen h6 doesn't do much better. White scores really well there. Even with queen e7, though, white's got a good score in this gambit. Look at this. Knight f4 is the main move. Queen g4 is an alternative, so we didn't play anything too far out of the book here. f5. Probably been a better try than f6 for black. Let's look, but looks like white does really well with f5. So how do you respond to that? Queen h5. So we're forcing all these pawns onto light squares. No, the queen can come to f7. Queen takes f7. So we're at pawn down. We're going without the queens. Knight b5. Knight a6. Now knight g5. King e7, just giving back the pawn. What if he tries to hold the pawn? Oh, you can't. That's a fork on both of these vulnerable pawns. Okay. Okay, that's how a lot of these games resolve materially. Back to equality, but with white with a lasting initiative. f6. I don't see that on the list here. Was this a blunder? I mean, no master has played it in the database. I want to look back a bit first. If knight f4 first. Doesn't seem to put immediate pressure on the position, but it opens up the rook and it definitely improves the knight. Queen g4 seemed a little more forcing. But the theoretical move is knight f4. Anyway, we won't look at that here. f6, no game found. So I'm going to turn on the engine. Ooh. Huh. Now, I'm certain that that evaluation, let's quick request analysis. I'm certain that evaluation is going to change a lot. And that I did not have that. I did not keep that kind of advantage throughout the rest of the game. But I found the right move here, knight f4. Oh, knight g6 right away. Okay, right. That's the whole point of knight f4 right here, is it does make a threat. No, it doesn't, because f7 pawn covers g6. But yeah, that's the major threat. But the problem is black can just sacrifice the exchange, right? Let's look at it. Knight g6. No, because we're taking with check, and we're going to get our share of the center. He's got to go. I guess king f7 works. Oof, you hate to see it. Rook takes c8 though. White's getting his piece back. So what's wrong with knight here? Knight takes d5. Oh, that's amazing. That's a wonderful pin. Oh, that gives up the queen ultimately, not just the bishop. You got to block with the queen and then just sack an exchange and the queen is gone. Okay, we're learning about the Alekhine-Chatard Gambit. Oh, I made a mistake, but it's a game-winning mistake at least. So yeah, knight g6. How did I miss this? The whole point of the Gambit is to open up this. But, you know, you got to play a few games with the Gambit a few times, sometimes, just to get the feel and to know what to look for. But I should be able to see that. I should be able to see that. So I went for the pawn instead of the juicier g6. Just winning a whole rook. Yeah, probably knight g6 and then what, queen f6? Knight f6. Okay, queen g3. And queen b4. Huh. We just castle, let that rook sit. What happens when we take the rook? Still better, right? Yeah, just take the rook. It's because the knight's guarded. And you can just move this rook out of the way once queen takes b2. There's your problem. You're losing a knight. Queen takes g7. Queen takes g7, no. Okay. The tactics work out in white's favor. I went here because I saw it. Well, it looked good, and I didn't look for a better move. Sometimes you're just limited by time. So and it was a good move in the sense that, I mean, it's still winning, and there's a winning plan here. It involves a queen trade, but that's fine with me. I'm not averse to queen trades, although I like gambits. King f7. Now it likes d takes e5. Let's see how much. Okay, it's another game-winning mistake. Found a winning idea. But still, I'm up 2.5 after this mistake. Apparently this was better, this line I looked at. D takes e5. Now, I would just take with the king, right? That's where your king wants to be. Oh, but then the king won't be there for good. Right, that is losing a lot. Wait. So, you can't go with that king takes. How did I miss that? e5, sorry, d4. Now take here, and my knight will hang on a minute. D takes c3. Rook h6. Oh, we're just gonna we're gonna hold on for dear life. I mean, but knight d7 is gonna get that right back, isn't it? No, because bishop c4 check. Okay. Okay. Good to see, good to know. Again, I went with a move that looked good enough. Both of those options look good enough for me at this point. Not likes knight f6. What about knight b5? Not as winning, because rook e8 check. Interesting. Okay. So that was the right move. Take there. And he takes, and now I'm here. These are all pretty forced. Yeah. Okay, that was a bad move for black. Bishop e2. Knight c7 anyway? Oh, the skewer. Right, I could land the skewer at the end. So this kind of transposes. In the meantime, his king is on a goofy square. He likes rook c3 better here. I want to keep pressure on that pawn, just so the bishop wasn't so free to leave. Yeah, and from here on, it's pretty simple, and I can... Oh, I did make an error here. Again, threw away my advantage. How could black have... Rook takes g2. Oh, sure. She can win a pawn. He can win a pawn here. I didn't see this. No, wait. Rook takes e2. Okay, he can give up the exchange for 2 pawns, which gives him better drawing chances. Makes my life a little harder. Actually, is he getting all 3 pawns for that? No. But this is a lot harder to win than what happened in the game. And now he's got his king to a worse position. Oh, it doesn't like that. What is it like instead? King takes e2. Rook b2. Going back to b2 with the rook? Just to defend those pawns. Okay, well that's a super boring way to play. Yeah, now it's just a matter of execution. Okay, well thanks for watching, folks. First win on the channel since I've come back at the last day of the year. So good way to finish out 2021. I hope you all have a great New Year celebration and stay feisty.